Cinemassacre's Monster Madness.
Hey, look what the Marvel Universe put out earlier this month. It's Werewolf by Night, a surprise Halloween special. If you have Disney Plus, you should check it out. And it's less than an hour long, so why not? I watched it twice. That means I liked it, but I was a little taken back the first time. It wasn't what I expected. So let's get into it. But first, a word from this video's sponsor. Today's sponsor is a game that is loosely based on my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie and arguably his best, Vertigo. Available on PC and consoles now, dive into an immersive psychological thriller spanning multiple characters and timelines. After writer Ed Miller survives a car crash without a scratch on him, he develops severe vertigo and becomes convinced that he wasn't the only one in the car, even though nobody else was found in the wreckage. Now, Ed must unravel the truth of that terrible day buried deep inside his mind, and finds out that the truth may be worse than madness. Developed by award-winning Spanish adventure game studio Pendulum Studios, Vertigo features a gripping story that pays tribute narratively and visually to the thriller genre. To grab yourself a copy of the game, just click the link in the description below, and it's available on PC and consoles. A couple years ago, I made a video about how the classic monsters, mainly the Universal ones, have certain storylines or tropes that resemble superheroes. They share a lot in common. The origin stories, the special powers and weaknesses, secret identities, hidden lairs, masks, capes, and the idea of the crossovers and shared universe. In that same video, I mentioned that Marvel had their own series of monster comics, such as Werewolf by Night. I have some of them here, so I'm fairly familiar with it. Fun fact, I bought a few of these at Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash in Redback, New Jersey. Anyway, I've sometimes been asked the question, if the Universal monsters were going to get rebooted, how would I want to see it done? Well, after the Dark Universe failed, the one-movie cinematic universe, I said, just give it to Marvel. They know what to do. They have the whole shared universe idea nailed, and they already have their own monsters. Never would I have imagined it would actually happen. So now that we have Werewolf by Night, does that mean we're going to get Tomb of Dracula, Monster of Frankenstein, The Living Mummy? Please tell me this is just the beginning. I have mixed feelings about all the Marvel movies. I've really enjoyed most of the ones I've seen. The 4 Avengers movies kind of lost me a little, but all the individual ones I liked. But with all these new TV shows and all the superhero movies in general, I'm really getting burned out on the subject. And with all these Marvel movies being connected and following continuity with each other, it's a lot to keep up with. So I kind of checked out, but then Werewolf by Night comes along to hook me back in. Horror-themed, black and white, you got me right there. First of all, I just love the fact that Marvel would be able to release something in black and white when we know how hard that is to get away with these days. Rob Zombie wasn't able to put out the Munsters in black and white on Netflix. It shines with pure nostalgia right from the beginning. The special presentation logo looks just like one of those old TV logos from the 80s and 90s, but the opening title goes further back to the 30s and 40s with an old film stock, and the copyright year has the Roman numerals, so they're directly referencing the time period of the classic monsters. Love it. Then the prologue begins with hand-drawn pages out of some kind of monster mythology book. The narrator, voiced by Rick Wasserman, is emulating that old-style creepy voice. It's kind of an archetype that I'm guessing started in radio plays, but the best example I can think of is actually William Castle's The Night Walker. If that's too obscure of an example, I'll just say the voice from the Haunted Mansion. The plot starts right up with a group of monster hunters that gather together at the funeral of Ulysses Bloodstone, also from Marvel Comics. He's the monster hunting leader, and now that he's dead, the others have to compete in a hunt that will decide the new leader. There's a really weird part where the corpse of Ulysses speaks to the monster hunters from inside his coffin. It's not supernatural. It's more like he pre-recorded and pre-orchestrated it so his body could be like wound up mechanically. And it's really, really strange. He even makes a really stupid joke out of nowhere. "I'll be rotting for you." His widow laughs hysterically, and this part struck me as being really awkward and out of place. As leader, Ulysses had a stone called the Bloodstone, so not only is it the character's last name, it's also an actual stone. It's one of those typical power items and will be given to whoever wins the competition. During the hunt, the Bloodstone is attached to the monster's body, which, as the widow explained, will weaken it but also make it angry. I don't really get all the logic, but whatever. I do like the widow character, Verussa, played by Harriet Sansom Harris. She's creepy and kind of overdramatic, but it's a fun performance. So with all these different monster hunters, I gotta say, for a special that's been described as a one-off film, it doesn't feel that way. It feels a bit like another big-ass Avengers team-up, almost as if there existed more movies and we're just being dropped in the middle of it. It's not like you can really focus on many of these characters in less than an hour. Even though you don't see a whole lot of them, they do all have interesting looks, especially the one in the white fluffy outfit. What a great looking character. And then there's the guy with the scar on his face and the guy with the beard. I'd like to see more of them. I'm not well knowledged in all the deep comic lore and their backgrounds and histories. The two main protagonists are Jack Russell, played by Gail Garcia Bernal, and Elsa Bloodstone, played by Laura Donnelly. Elsa's the daughter of Ulysses, but went her separate ways from the family. From what I've gathered, she's a more recent character of the Marvel Comics of the last 20 years, and is often compared to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. From what I understand, this is her first appearance on film. Before I go on, I just want to give a spoiler alert for the benefit of doubt. Potential spoilers on the way. If you want to watch it fresh and not know anything, I'd say stop here. So anyway, just to talk about Jack a little more, he is the werewolf character, for anyone who's unfamiliar. I don't know if that's meant to come off as a surprise or not, but it's important to mention that he doesn't turn into the wolf until roughly the last 10 minutes. I found that to be very disappointing. The werewolf is in the title, we should get the werewolf sooner than later. I really loved the production design. The whole mansion has a weird architecture and is decorated with the heads of killed monsters. There's lanterns and torches, all the good stuff. Then when the hunters are set loose in the maze, there's forests, there's crypts, and even though it's paying tribute to classic horror, it has a very modern design. There's a lot of hard angles and blocky textures. Just seeing the characters explore the place is great to look at. The music has some nods to Bernard Herrmann, it seems to me at least, but again, while it sounds classic, it also sounds modern. I really loved the music. I thought it was one of the strongest assets to the film. It was composed by Michael Giacchino, who also directed. So not only are they hunting after the monster, but they're trying to kill off each other as well, basically to win at any cost. Both Jack and Elsa get to show off in some great fight sequences, individually. Once the action starts, it gets pretty damn good. The monster they're hunting is a friend of Jack's, and he's working with the monster who he calls Ted. And yeah, that's another little awkward joke moment. It definitely seems like a huge trend in modern superhero films to only call the characters by their human names. Not once do they call the monster by his more familiar comic book name, Man-Thing. This actually wasn't the first time Man-Thing was on film. There was a Sci-Fi Channel movie in 2005 that probably nobody wants to remember. He's also made many appearances in the various animated Marvel series. Here he's a combination of practical effects and CG, and it looks pretty good. But I still felt confused why all the focus is on Man-Thing when I thought the majority would be the werewolf. So later on, Jack is discovered as being a monster and therefore a traitor to the hunters. So he's locked up, blasted with a shower of laser projectiles like all the Marvel movies, and finally he transforms into the wolf. I like how they only show the transformation in shadow. That's definitely what you call classic. And by the time you finally see him as the wolf, 39 minutes have passed. For a special that only runs 48 minutes before the credits start, I'd say that's a bit late. But when it happens, it's badass. Once the werewolf is finally jumping around, flipping, clawing, biting, and doing flying kicks, that's when all the good shit happens. Over 20 years ago, I made a movie called Fu Werewolf from Outer Space. But here is an actual Kung Fu werewolf. If my younger self would have seen this, I would have lost my shit. There's a great shot near the end that's done in one long take where he's just going around, fucking everybody up while blood is slowly dripping down the screen. Meanwhile, Elsa's fighting against the other hunters. There's swords and blood squirting everywhere. I could do without all the excess lasers from the Bloodstone, but hey, it's all good spectacle. I guess we're doing spoilers, so I'll just say, spoiler again. I love when Man-Thing finishes off Verussa. He incinerates her with his grip and then throws her into her husband's corpse, leaving only a rolling head. One last thing, I really don't know what's up with the ending. When Elsa claims the Bloodstone, everything goes to color and we hear Somewhere Over the Rainbow, the actual Judy Garland recording from Wizard of Oz. The connection is overly obvious since Wizard of Oz is the most classic example of a film that switches the color. They even mimic the end title using a font that's similar. Just a weird choice. Why did this whole special end with a big Wizard of Oz tribute? I think it still could have switched to color to emphasize that the gloom and dread has been conquered, but without making such a huge, conscious connection to a classic film. That just, I don't know, took me out of it a little. Overall, I enjoyed this special. I wouldn't say it blew my mind, but I had a lot of fun with it. I wish it were more focused on the werewolf, and it seems like it has lots of connections to other comics and storylines, and I wish it were a little more isolated, especially if it's just meant to be a one-off special. I'd like to see more of these. Let's see Tomb of Dracula, Living Mummy, and all the rest. I support that. I've been asked before, what's the future of the classic monsters? And I say, something like this. Go for it.